Oh. Arthur. Wake up, the phone's ringing. Somebody's calling. Oh, my God, I can't find my phone. Where is it? Shoot. Help me get it, Arthur. I can't figure out who it is. Oh, God, it was Mike. Oh, God, Arthur, it was Mike. What time is it? It's 4 o'clock. It's 4:12. Oh, God, I gotta climb back. What is it? Okay. Hello, Mike? Mike, what's going on? Is everything all right? What? You don't know where she's at? What do you mean you don't know where she's at? Did you try to call her? You can't. She's got a gun? Where did she get a gun? Oh my God. Okay, we'll be on our way. We're on our way. We'll be there in a minute. $4:12 in the morning. My husband and I are scrambling, trying to get our clothes on, our hearts on the floor. Where could she be? She don't have her phone. She lives 45 miles away. We were running, thinking, who could we call? Where could she be? We make it to the house. Don't know what to do. You go. I'll start looking for her. I'll start calling hospitals. Because by this time, my registered nurse daughter would have already called in work because she was that committed. She had a broken hand. I talked to her the day before. Everything was okay. That Sunday morning, we had talked. And I said, why don't you just call in? They'll understand. No, they don't have nobody to cover for me. There's no way. I just don't know what to do with this in my hand because I type all day long and I can't hardly touch the keys. And just please, just call in. So I knew if she hadn't gone in, she would have already called in. It's 5 o'clock. Everybody knows you got to call in a couple hours before you're supposed to be there. Call the hospital. Are you there? I'm sorry. I said, can I speak to the supervisor? Do you know if Lindsay's called in? No. So I start calling hospitals. My husband is out looking for her. No hospital has her. What do you call my husband? No answer. Why isn't my husband answering my phone? Stress is up here. Lindsay, just come home. Just come home. If I could have just got her home, could have talked her through it. She was in a crisis. She was in a crisis at that time, and we all knew it. So my poor husband, who found her. Thank God the police had gotten there first. Didn't allow him to approach the car. But he couldn't answer the phone to tell me. So we are, it's by this time, it's 6 in the morning, and family's starting to come in. I'm wailing. And I'm sitting there, and nobody. We were all, you can imagine, in a state of it's complete trauma, and all of a sudden somebody says, "Johnna, there's somebody here that wants to meet you." I said, "What? I don't want to meet some stranger. Who are they?" And I looked up, and there's this man and woman. And they sat down across from me, and they said, we're from the Denton County Lost Team. And I'm Landon, and she introduces herself as Sherry. And just wanted you to know that I lost my son to suicide. And immediately, it was somebody that had experienced what I was experiencing. It was huge for me. I didn't really realize until later just how huge of an impact that made on my life and the trajectory that it began to change my grief process. They sit there. I get the call that they're about to bring my 9-year-old grandson, who had spent the weekend with his father. Oh my God. What do I do? How do I tell him? They took me, opened up their little bag, something like this, and pulled out this book and said, let's just turn to chapter 5. And it'll give you some words and give you some phrases on how to tell your grandson. And so they helped me to breathe. I don't know where my peppermint's at right now, but they helped me to get focused and to be prepared to be there, for my grandson. It's I know this is a very heavy subject. They also gave me this little booklet, Knowledge. That book was too daunting, too big. I wasn't going to be picking up and reading a book. But they gave me this little pamphlet. It's called SOS, a handbook for survivors of suicide. Never even knew that term. And that sounded like somebody that actually had maybe committed suicide and survived it. I didn't know what it meant anyway, but now I realized that's what I am, survivor of suicide. The American Psychiatric Association ranks the trauma of losing a loved one to suicide as catastrophic, on par with that of a concentration camp experience. And I can truly say, I didn't eat for 10 days. I lost 30 pounds within the next 6-8 weeks. My husband lost 50 pounds. Needless to say, we were completely shattered. You don't know how to process this. Because suicide, I experienced death. My husband is a pastor. I've seen children die. I'm a nurse. I've been exposed to, elderly dying, traumatic deaths, accidental deaths. Nothing can prepare you for the trauma of the death by suicide of a child. A person who is lost says, death touches all of our lives sooner or later, and sometimes it is expected, as with the passing of an elderly relative. Sometimes it comes suddenly in the form of a tragic accident. But suicide is different. The person you have lost seems to have chosen death. And that simple fact makes a world of difference for those left to grieve. The suicide survivor faces all the same emotions as anyone who mourns a death, but they also face a somewhat unique set of painful feelings on top of their grief. They face guilt. Why did I leave her? Why didn't I make her stay with me that weekend? I said, please, Lindsay, won't you just stay this weekend? No, Mom, she's working on getting her real estate license as well. No, I'm going to take that test. The kids are with their dads. I'm gonna study. I just made 100 on my last test, and I'm gonna get ready for my next one. We know instinctively that we cannot call disease, accidents, or old age. Okay, I'm sorry. Rarely in other deaths do we encounter any feelings of responsibility. Disease, accidents, or old age, we know instinctively that we cannot cause or control these things. But the suicide survivor, even if they were only on the periphery of a deceased's life, invariably feels that they might have, or could have, or should have done something to prevent the suicide. This mistaken assumption is the suicide survivor's greatest enemy. The other thing that you face is stigma. If you're standing on the playground with your little 3-year-old granddaughter, which she also had a 3-year-old, and somebody asks where her mother is or what her mother is, you avoid that because it's just there's a stigma to it. How could a woman leave her child? And we've even said those things. Anger. It's not uncommon to feel some form of anger toward a lost loved one. I'm angry that I'm even here today. I still have to process that. But it's intensified for survivors of suicide. For us, the person we lost is also the murderer. Bring a new meaning to the term love-hate relationship. Only they're not there to be able to work it out or to resolve it. You just want to get inside their brain. You want to know why. You want to know what happened. You know the last phone call she made that evening was to one of her friends whose husband had left her, and she was worried about her. Calling to check on her. Then she called her brother, who was friends with that girl's husband, to see if he could talk to him. She was trying to reconcile someone else's life. And disconnection. When we lose a loved one to disease or accident, it is easier to retain happy memories. We know that if you could choose, they would still be here with us. But it's not as easy for the suicide survivor because our loved one seems to have made a choice that is abhorrent to us. We feel disconnected and we are in a state of conflict with them, and we are left to resolve that conflict alone. So how do you think you never get over it? Suicide is different. The hope that you have is getting through it. Putting your loss in its proper perspective, accepting your life as it now lies before you, forever changed. So, I want to just tell you a little bit about Lindsay, about the beauty and the beast, I call it. How did this beautiful this is my favorite pictures ever. You don't have both of her children in it, but this was a happy day that we had. It's going and doing a photo shoot. She was so happy there. Her little boy adored her, and she loved her little boy. And she was beautiful. She was smart. She was always in the gifted and talented. She was very compassionate for other people. She had, in her 2nd grade, I remember her walking out of the house one day, and she came out with a brown paper sack. I said, "What are you doing with that?" It's full of her clothes. I'm taking it to my friend at school because she don't hardly have any clothes. She's that real strong, compassionate person. Her also, as far as personality goes, I always sort of think about it. It's sort of one of the rare ones, but the melancholy choleric. Which is one that feels very strongly, has highs and lows, and feels very strongly as a melancholy can. And then that choleric, that real high task. She ended up graduating out here in 2012 as a registered nurse. She walked these halls. She's a beautiful nurse. She graduated Gainesville High School as on the homecoming court, and always in the gifted and talented through school. You would think with her beautiful smile that she would have no reason to have had low self-esteem or loathing of herself. She was, what else? What did I do with my paper? She was an artist. She developed one of the logos for our hospital out here, the heart with the "Where Love Begins Here" or something. She designed that. She worked in labor and delivery out here. She also designed the one for Laura Anderson. You know her. She has a practice here in town, and she designed her logo. She had just a natural gift and talent. She was a gardener. She had her own garden. She was a finished furniture. She was a high multitasker. She went straight out of graduating here out of our nursing program, went into the Parkland program. She was an Parkland ER nurse. She loved that. She was multitasker, had high standards for herself. So what happened? How could you reconcile this? Well, I'll tell you the other flip side. One of the worst things that you can do is one of the things she did have social anxiety. We didn't really know. It was sort of an undiagnosed thing, but she did. As a young teenager and a later teen, she began to cope with that social anxiety with alcohol. She became connected to beautiful young girls. She had met an older guy, the bad boy. Relationship issues. Broke her heart. I think that was one of the first times that the word or the concept of suicide came in her life. She was so brokenhearted over that. So if you ever get that thought, and that's what happened, if you ever get that little thought, it can become a seed. So then as you went on, she got involved. She became an MA first, worked for Dr. Blair down at his orthopedics, worked at an urgent care while she was working herself through nursing school. She she got pregnant by a young man that I guess she thought she was going to marry. That relationship failed. Failed relationships. Poor coping skills. She began to have self-loathing. She lived with shame. She was hard on herself. You'd hear it when she would drink. It'd come out as being, I'm stupid. I cannot believe that. I can't make good decisions. Because she would be compulsive. She was a compulsive person. She thought of something to do it. She did it. And fast. And if she did it, she was great at it. I mean, she was very, driven. She could be mean. She had a hard time in relationships. Being honest, when you're under high stress, you got all these expectations on yourself, she could be short with people. If it didn't, she wanted things like that. Can't we all? Does that any of you in the room contest that you've been under stress? But she had that constant negative self-talk. I'm a failure. I'm a loser. Broken hearts. I know that we say it's, mental illness, and I don't even really like that because I myself have a history here at this college. I graduated a year early from high school, 17, and I came right out here, Cooke County College then, 1984, and was going to go in the LVN program, and they told me, well, you tested pretty high on your test. Why don't you go on into it was my friend was there with me. Why don't y'all go on into the ADN program, Y'all would do real good in that. Okay. I was just young, 17-year-old, didn't know what I was going to do. Went through, my friend backed out, so I ended up coming on out here by myself. At 17, I did a year of my basics and got in the program. And I was in the next to the last, was in the end of that third quarter of my nursing. And I had gotten involved in a relationship. Started getting sick. End of the exams are about to come up. I'm having to run out of the class because I'm throwing up. So guess what? Little Miss supposedly perfect, raised in the Leave It to Beaver home, daddy an elder in the church, mother the piano player. I was a singer. I was their little whatever, high achiever, already in college, going to be graduating out here as a nurse. Plan was turning 20 in April and graduating that May. Instead, I was pregnant with shame. Got married, just real quick scenario. Got married, dropped out of nursing school, ran off to California. Left everybody I knew. Married this guy who had a job out there and had insurance, and he had family out there. I didn't know anybody. Actually, I did have some family at further California, but major life changes, crises. I'm pregnant, I leave home, everything I know. I get out there, and guess what? I've married an abusive man. He's throwing me out of cars. He's throwing me across rooms. I was a very traumatic domestic violence situation. I was determined to stick it out. You married, you didn't divorce, that era. Mother and dad tried to get me to come out there, tried to get me to leave. I wouldn't. Ended up having my little Lindsay out there on July 3rd, 1985. Still trying to make it work. Became so abusive, and then he ended up leaving me, throwing me out of a car down the highway and left me. And about 15 miles out of Bakersfield, I had to knock on strangers' doors before the age of cell phones, get a ride call some local church to come get me. knew I had to get back home. So thank God I got back in time just before they changed the whole curriculum out here, the whole program. And I came back, guess what though? Pregnant again. So I got to finish, end up graduating, 7 months pregnant. Thank God, started my first job at 8 months pregnant, still trying to make that relationship work, reconciled, because here I'm back to have another baby, reconciled, I'm trying to make this short. Life spiraling. I lived with him 9 months until he broke my little boy's leg. Major trauma, again, he was 9 months old. Of course, at this point, CPS. So calling my mama, come get me quick. If he's abusive to me is one thing, my children's another. Get out of the situation, and here I am, never been exposed to any of this. I mean, literally, I had a mom and daddy that were just amazing. I was never exposed to any type of abuse, anything. So I come back and I end up divorcing. I had a 1 and a 2-year-old at this point. I'm working 6 nights a week at Gainesville Hospital. Y'all remember the 6-2 schedules? Any nurses in here? They used to do 6-2 schedules. And so I worked 6 nights a week, taking 2 babies to 3 places a night. I spiraled down. I never thought of suicide in my life. It's so overwhelming, and y'all know this, if any of y'all have experienced any type of just the grind of old daily life and stress, enough, working, being a single parent perhaps, being lonely, being no matter what every one of you have been through things. But you add on these major life crises and you can find yourself mentally ill, emotionally broken. I literally began to have suicidal ideations. I couldn't get out of bed. I couldn't brush my teeth. I didn't want to live. I didn't think I could. And what's sad, and I'm going to say this, but anyway, is my thinking was that if I left, I was going to take my kids with me. That's how you think. How in the world can anybody ever do this? My mental thinking was, this life is too hard. I'm not going to leave my babies to this kind of life. Sort of even began to having a plan. Didn't tell nobody, but had an idea and have a plan of how I was going to do it. I had a sister, I had family that was supporting me. Nobody could change my situation. To be honest with you, I can't say anything else, but for me, I cried out to God, help me. Help me. And I really feel like I experienced a miracle because I never had to go on antidepressants. My life completely just changed within 1 week. I was at Christmas. I was so broken. Big, beautiful family, having all their Christmas. Trying not to down theirs. I'm hiding behind the bar in my mother's kitchen, trying to keep from crying, because I didn't want to ruin Christmas. Went from that to got a phone call. Or met a friend. Hey, they got a great job down here at Denton Community Hospital, and they're just a new hospital, and they're needing labor and delivery nurses. Went from working 6 nights a week to 3 days a week, off every other weekend. I surrounded myself. When I walked in there, I had the most wonderful doctor that I worked with. It was positive. I'm going to tell you the power of working with people that are positive and will speak into your life. Because you never know what this young, cute, whatever, little nurse came in, they would think, well, what problems does she have? Walking in there, I worked with Kim Eagleton, who was an amazing nurse, and Dr. Cummings, if anybody knows him, but he was fabulous man that just was positive and was so supportive, and I just sucked it all in. And so that began to change my life. That changed the trajectory of my life where I began to think, how can I help somebody else? In that May, I started my job January the 4th, 1988. That May, I started a little youth support. I called it youth support in my home for neighborhood kids. I wanted to help other people. I wanted to help other kids that found themselves perhaps pregnant, being a pregnant teen, or broken homes, or on pot, or struggling with school, or having girlfriend issues. And so we didn't hardly have any youth in our church, and so I invited a few over to my house and invited my neighborhood kids, about 7. We had about 7 that first time. We just got in a big circle. circle and a big support group. It was amazing. They loved it. We talked about what friendship is about. That was it. They was able to share with me anything they were doing. Okay, I need to quit smoking pot. Okay, my girlfriend's pregnant. Okay, my parents are divorced. All of their just a rat of everything that those kids were going through. They was able to share it with me, and I became a safe place for them. It went from 7 kids in May. I said, okay, well, we'll call it Youth Support, and you guys can come back next Tuesday night. And so they came back next Tuesday night, 15. The next Tuesday night, 18. The next Tuesday night, 25. The next Tuesday night, 30. By December, I had over 100 kids coming to my house every Tuesday night. And this is in this little old poor neighborhood where all I had was this big old rent house that I was renting that had, if y'all familiar with older homes, they got those big old, the living room, the dining room. Of course, I've gone back to that now, but everything's open concept. And so it was plenty. I didn't have any furniture, didn't even have a TV. All I had was these kids would just get in this circle, and we would get on the floor and we'd just go around the room. They would just share a little bit, maybe what they'd like for me to pray with them about. And it was an amazing experience. It went on for 3 years. It healed me. This is what I became my trajectory of my life. I ended up so happy as a single woman. I realized I did not made that commitment. I can be happy without a man. I can give. I have something to give. I'm an amazing person. I survived this. I wanted to help others, and that's where it sort of began with that. 4 years later, I did meet my husband, and I remember my friends at work saying, "Johnna, why don't you ever date?" I was like, "Nope." I said, "Well, he'd have to be a man of faith. He would have to be able to love me. He'd have to be able to love my kids, and he'd have to be able to support me if I didn't want to work." And they laughed. I remember the lady over med-surg friend. She says, "Well, you'll never get married." I said, "That's fine with me." So I know that I experienced a miracle, and so I ended up meeting my husband, who adores me and loves me, and we've been married 31 years, and so we began. Both of us were passionate about helping other people. So I began. At that point, we became volunteers out at TYC. We were volunteer chaplains out there for 12 years. The first time I ever got invited to go to the jail, it was on Christmas night. And I went on Christmas night and got to just love and just speak life into those girls. And it was the most amazing Christmas of my life. I mean, really, can you imagine? What do you think? For me, I am a Christian. I don't know that you are, and it isn't. That's my story. I'm not putting that on you, but I felt like I was right where I was supposed to have been on Christmas night. So I've been a volunteer chaplain, still am, and I coordinate all the volunteers now at our local jail out there to the female inmates. I started having in 2012, I quit nurse. I worked for 20 years as a nurse, and then I resigned and began a journey of just self-growth again. I hit my 40s, and I was like, okay, I'm still acting like a child in so many of my relationships. I need to grow up. I still had some depression, had some anger issues. I was still struggling with these adult kids. I'd gone through 4 teenagers. Remember, because I got married, my husband had he had a 5 and a 6-year-old, and I had a 4 and a 5-year-old, and then we had one together, this one right here. And so we had 5 kids. And if anybody knows anything about raising teenagers, anybody got any teenagers? No, it's trying, but I have 4 at one time. So I was like, oh, God, you got to help me. So I actually felt led. It was one time I was going through a personal thing where we used to have, every summer we would do worship camps for kids that had a lot of these kids came from broken homes, because remember, we're involved in the jail, we're involved with Alcoholics Anonymous, we are involved in a lot of those types of areas, so I have a lot of these kids in our lives, right? Kids that are broken. And so I'm thinking, how can I minister to these kids? I'm going to have them for 4 days. What can I speak into these lives? I've got 4 to 12-year-olds. What can I do? So I'm contemplating it's coming up that summer, and I'm praying, and I began to feel this impression, of just needing to cleanse my own self. So I went on a 40-day fast. I tell my mother, and so I thought, I'm going to go on this 40-day fast. And so for personal, just honing in, focusing, and just all the benefits of it, physically, spiritually, soulishly, whatever. So I did this 40-day fast. At the end of it, I was thinking, okay, how do I take, because it was an amazing experience. And I thought, how can I take all of this that you've given me, that I feel that is, and put it in the hands of a 4-year-old? Because see, this world, y'all do know that the second cause of death for our 10 to 24-year-olds is suicide. And with all the suicide prevention that has gone on, really nothing's changed. It's sad to say that, but nothing's really changed. So for me, my vision, and so as I began to be touched emotionally by these hurting children that we have in our world today, I thought, okay, I can't just play little games with these kids. I've got to really try to equip them with something. They need to know now how to handle conflict, how to handle broken hearts, how to handle. So I got to the end of it, and I says, God, what did I just say? This is what he gave me. I'm really honest with you. He said, this is for a 4-year-old, right? So I'm going to give it to you as a 4-year-old. Johnny, tell them that I have a thumbs up for them, that I am for them, that I accept them. They are accepted. Let them know that they're accepted, right where they're at. Johnna, tell them that they are loved. Tell them that they are important. Tell them that I want them, that they are valuable. They have worth. Tell them that they are enough. I didn't even realize it at the time, but as I was writing it, guess what it spells? A-L-I-V-E. Alive. That's our goal, isn't it, in prevention? Keeping people alive. Staying alive ourselves. I am alive. I can stay alive. I want to live alive. So right here, I began this trek, and as I began to prepare it for that little worship camp that summer, it just began to explode in my life. It actually meets all the hierarchy, Maslow's hierarchy of needs. I mean, it's right here. So right here, you have in the palm of your hand your own little life coach. If you'll take these concepts, and you all know these, we all know that acceptance. Let me see. Acceptance. We got to accept our strengths and our weaknesses, that I'm not perfect, that I make mistakes. We have to learn how to give ourselves, accept that I'm not these things, and give ourselves grace and mercy. My daughter didn't know how to do that. One of the things that leads to overwhelming and failure is not being able to accept. Also, you have to accept accountability for your actions. What can I change? What I can't change. We all know. So acceptance. Accept that I can't change other people. Accept the fact that I'm not destined to try to change you. The only thing I can change is what is right here in this circle. It can only change me. I can change my perspective. Accept the fact that I need others. I need others to help me to be healthy. Give somebody a thumbs up. Y'all know what it means when you see your little grandson or your grandchild or your kid out there on that field. Come on, you're doing a good job. We all need that. Everyone, I need that right now. Come on, give me a thumbs up, Candace. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. I need that. This has been horrific for me. I've had to relive my whole life, my whole daughter's life, the whole scenario, everything just to get here today. I don't know what it took for you to be here today. I know a little bit about you. I know what you've been through. I'm so proud of you. I'm amazed that you are now here, working out here, and you are a student. You're amazing. You're a single mother. You've been through a lot. Every one of us, y'all, are on the same journey. You all are here with this smile on your face, and I wanted to quote this. I thought this was something else. All it takes is a beautiful fake smile to hide an injured soul, and they will never notice how broken you really are. Robin Williams. So acceptance. We have to accept that. This is the thumbs up. It's the only finger that will cover everything else. We cover ourselves with grace. We have to give ourselves grace and give ourselves forgiveness. Love. No person is responsible for your happiness. You have to accept the responsibility to look up and learn how to love. Love doesn't just come naturally. You have to be taught. Learn. You have to be taught how to love. You have to be taught how to be in relationships. It's not just a feeling. We all know that, right? As soon as you get married, you have to, or whatever you your siblings, your parents, everything. You have to learn how to change and adapt. And I've been married for 30 years, but Lord have mercy, my husband and I will still go to marriage conferences or anything that we can do. You change. To keep love alive, you have to constantly be learning and how to do it. So you have to look up and get a higher perspective. If you get stuck in what's now, in the failure that you are, maybe you have experienced a failure, maybe you've experienced a loss, maybe you're brokenhearted. If you don't have somebody to help you to look up, to see things a little differently, like where I was at, it's like, it's amazing to try to look at that low of place that I was at. I had friends and I had people that came along and helped me. That woman sitting across from me saying, I lost my son. She caused me to immediately get a different, dear God, you're here dressed, breathing, able to come out here and sit with me, listen to me well? It gave me a different perspective, right? That, oh my God, you can survive this. So look up, learn. You should think this is a coach that you need to learn how to give yourself, and then you can give it to somebody else. The middle finger, I always use this at the jail. Because the middle finger, you are important. You are important. Let me tell you why. It's because you have the power of life and death in your tongue. You have authority and influence. You can walk in this room and you can influence it, and you can set an atmosphere of pure, mean, down, depressed, or you can walk in this room and you have the power to speak life. You create your world with your words. Your world is created with your words. I have a nephew that just 30 years old that just sold his business for $60 million. He gave me that line. He says, Johnna, you create your world with your words. And he started as in elementary school, told his grandma, I'm going to be retired, independently wealthy by the age of 30, and I'm going to retire at 35. Well, I think he's there. As a matter of fact, you know the new 988 number for the suicide hotline? His company is the one who set that platform. So you are important. You are important because you have the power of life and death. Standing alone without understanding, without love, learning how to be in relationships, or standing without what we can talk about valuable, it's not good. We cannot stand alone. We need each other. You've got to learn how to live in relationships. You are important. Be an encourager with your words. The first time my daughter said, I don't want to live, the world is better off without me. See? The world's better off without me. My kids are better off without me. I'm a failure. I'm no good. I'm not good enough for that guy because I'm blah, 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 blah. Who would want me? Those words, what did it do? It created her world. Somewhere, sometime, anybody that commits suicide, it became a thought. It became an option. So then when the perfect storm happens, like it did with her. So be an encourager with your words. We can change the world with that. Valuable, we have meaning and purpose. You are needed. Sometimes our purposes are not even discovered until we've gone through hard tragedies, until we've gone through adversities. The adversities that you have in life is what broadens your capacity to be able to be more compassionate with other people because you've experienced it. Being a single mom, I became very sensitive and encouraging to somebody else that I know is being a single mom and what that means, or whatever. Somebody that's been brokenhearted, has been abandoned, has been abused. That's why, compassionate and help with Arms Around the County and want to raise money for that. Or Abigail's Arms. We did Arms Around the County too. So you have to understand the value of yourself and the value of others because you need others. I could not have made it alone. Enough. We accept that we have strengths and weaknesses. Again, we have to accept the little pinky is small and it is weak, alone. But you have to be able to accept those weaknesses and realize that I am, with God and with others, I am pretty enough, I'm strong enough, I'm talented enough, I'm gifted enough to fulfill my own unique destiny. I don't have to be as pretty or smart as you. I'm not as smart as my sister. I have a sister that's a little brainiac. She can type everything up. And for growing up as a sibling, I used to compare myself. And that comparison game is deadly. It's deadly. Don't do it. Make a commitment that I will not compare myself to others because I don't have their destiny. I'm not walking out their road. I have mine. I have my purpose, my meaning. I have to accept that. To look in the mirror every day and say, Johnna, you're enough. I had to have my husband tell me, he says, Johnna, just go do your best. You know, you got this. You're enough. But how many times do we negative self-talk ourselves? Even grown adult women. I'm so stupid. I can't believe I did that. Oh my gosh, wish I hadn't said that. Shouldn't have done that. Blah, blah, blah. Constantly, we are our own worst critics. And so instead of living alive, many times we walk around living in death. We lose our dreams, our hopes, our joy, our value, that I have something to give to this world. So that leads me to why I started, how that I began my journey of healing. I was, like I said, I was surrounded by people. The Lost team followed up with me for that first year. I'm going to tell you a little bit about them if I can on this, and got a few minutes to do this. So yeah, my live, and I'm going to go just share this a little bit, is that my live, I got to take it actually to Nashville. My vision and my dream for me. I went to the mayor with this and shared it all with him, and he absolutely loved it, and he says, I'll do my part of whatever I can do. And so one of the things that I asked him to do is if he would allow me to coordinate meetings with the mayor. So what I would do is I would call random people in the community from different backgrounds, maybe a student, a teacher, an officer, somebody that was recovering from alcohol or drugs, somebody that was a dad, just random people, not people that we would look at and go, ooh, look at you, all successful. So about 7 or 8 people, I started organizing these meetings with the mayor, and they were phenomenal. We just sat around the room, and it began to enhance communication and people to see another person. Like I brought my neighbor who had lost his kids. He was a drug addict when he moved next door. I'd worked with him for years, and we finally got him off drugs. He had his kids. He had really made some positive changes in his life. And I said, I want you to come and meet the mayor. I want him to see that there's hope, that we're a community that's going to come along beside you and support anybody that is ready to try to make a change. Because if you've ever been in those low places and got yourself all tangled in that, how hard it is to ever get out. And so he had us, whatever, as a neighbor for one, and as a Madeline, he did. And it was hard, it was difficult at times. But he was like, he looked at me and he says, one day I'm going to have what y'all have. And today he does. It was over a period of probably the last 10 years, but today he does. He has custody of his boys. He is working a good job. He is off drugs. I took him to the mayor and said, I want you to meet this guy. I want you to not just think criminals and drug addicts and get this vision you have of that group and just sort of categorize it. I want you to see this real man, this real person that is trying to come out of this, that is making positive changes. And he needs to be commended. And to know that our community is with him. And that's what I did. I did it for daddies. I said, I want you to meet this gentleman. He's a grandpa now, but he's quit drinking. He made the decision to quit drinking because it was inhibiting his ability to be a good dad. I want you to meet this student that is the first student here to ever be graduating from high school in her family. She's not maybe maybe she's not the top of her class, but I want you to know that this young lady has persevered and helps get her other siblings to school every morning because her mother has to leave. I want enhancing and appreciating I wish I knew all y'all's details of things that you've been through, but we've all, hearing those things, it changed really, I'll be honest with you. The mayor actually said it was the most profound thing he ever did as a mayor. It changed his whole trajectory, his whole perspective on life, to hear what somebody else's story is. I'm convinced that we need to equip our students. This is my vision. I think that the Alive program, and I did get the opportunity, I went to Nashville, and I did get to share it with an elite private school up there that wanted it in their school. Still working on developing the curriculum. But to me, every student that graduates high school needs to be equipped with the tools of being a relationship expert. I think that needs to be one of our plans. You need to graduate high school connected to the community, realizing that you matter, you have a say, you need to know what's going on in the mayor's office. You need to know, by the time they graduate high school, they have been connected and they have the tools and the skills to process conflict. I'm not a relationship expert, but that's my goal. That's when I sit down my adult kids and my whole family, and I said, my goal is to become a safe person for all of y'all. We need to look at each other and tell our colleagues and our students or whoever, I want to be a safe person for you. I'm not perfect. If I make a mistake, I'll apologize. But I want to be a safe person that you can come and talk to me. You can tell me anything without judgment. And that's what I created with those little kids back when I had youth support. They had a safe place to tell me all their deep, dark secrets. And so to me, if we do not make, if our society, if we really truly want to have suicide prevention, we're going to have to incorporate dealing with relationship conflicts in our schools. It needs to be, it has the highest priority. That's why we have politicians in a world today that does not know how to deal with conflict. I was right in the middle of all that conflict that happened back on the square and all that with the pro-Gainesville. My neighbor, one of them was my neighbor. They came to me for counsel. They felt safe with me. They knew who I was, but they felt safe to come and talk to me and ask my advice. And they still do. We have to become safe people. We've got to know. We have to let our kids know how to live safe, how to set healthy boundaries. I never knew I could say no to an adult. So that's my vision. So that's my goal. But right now my goal is just sort of keep breathing. So the lost team, I thought, how could any person ever go through what I went through without support? And do you know there are people that don't have families, that aren't connected to any type of social group or a church or anything that go through this? So I began my journey. I don't really care for that. The LOST team, LOST stands for Local Outreach to Suicide Survivors. A LOST team is an active model of post-venture that involves 2 or more trained volunteers who go to the scene of a suicide to provide immediate support to those left behind. Having a LOST team at the scene of a suicide provides lost survivors with practical support, a connection to resources, and most importantly, an installation of hope. So you have 2 survivors. One of them we want to be some sort of a healthcare professional, and the other one is a lost survivor. And we provide care and support that helps plant seeds of hope. And so I began on that in 19. Started just call around what was available, talking to Grayson County, talking to them what we have. Of course, we don't have a LOST team. We didn't really have anything. We had no support group here. I called Denton, started talking to them, and they told me all about theirs. Theirs is out of their MHMR, and the lady that was over theirs was actually employed by them, but the LOST team was funded through grants and things like that. So I began to sort of learn about it, and then 20 hit, so everything got put on hold. And so in 21, I picked it back up, I pulled together other like-minded people. Kelly's here, one of them. She was part of our steering, our development team. We began working, like I said, with Denton County, got their policies and their procedures, found out how you go about it. At this point, the lady that was over it then had moved all the way to Austin, Tammy Weppelman. She is over the Texas State mental health program out of Austin. And so I started working back with her. We was determined. It was tough, but I was just, I'm like a little, well, I don't know if I can say jackass, but whatever. Because there's a lot of stuff that is, would divert you, that happens, and deal it, and I just like, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. So the first thing we had to do, because there's no us without the Sheriff's Department. So, see what's on my next screen. What do I want to show here? Local outreach, that's what LAW stands for, is Local Outreach to Suicide Survivors. It is an international organization. You can go find them on lostteam.com. We provide on-scene, we go to on the scene. We are actually initiated by the Sheriff's Department. I carry this phone right here. This is our LOST team phone, 24/7. So if there's a suicide in our community, they call me. And so then I have a list of volunteers. Let me see if I've got any screens that show this. We're not a counseling service. We're not a one-stop whatever. Dr. Frank is the one who started this. We are a postvention. We do prevention through postvention. Because how many of you know, let me get to my notes, I'm sorry, that anybody that has suffered suicide, especially children, especially little boys, they are 3 to 4 times more apt to die by suicide themselves. Children of parents that have, or anybody that has, that's expected, that has experienced that. So we have, right now, we have, I think 12 active volunteers. We have a social worker, we have 3 clergy, and 3 counselors. Let me see here. Postvention is prevention for the next generation. One university studies of 3,500 students shows that 80 to 40 show people bereaved by the sudden death of a family or a friend member or family member are 65% more likely to attempt suicide if the deceased died by suicide than if they died by natural causes. As well as the increased suicide attempt, they were also 80% more likely to drop out of education or work. Children and teens who had a parent die by suicide are 3 times more likely to die by suicide than children and teens with living parents. Lost Teen research shows that survivors who received postvention care asked for assistance with their grief within 39 days versus 4 to 5 years or greater without it. And our family, since the passing of Lindsay, has had 1 hospitalization for suicide, 1 outpatient evaluation, and we had others express serious suicidal ideations. One of which is a lawyer. One of which is a 17-year-old, another high achiever, brilliant, just graduated high school with her associate's degree. Had to be hospitalized. On scene, we do on-scene responses, and we also, which is where we go actually to the scene. We take them we have them a bag, and one of the things that they pretty much like the most, adults or children, are our bears, because they have something to hold on to. It's comforting. We have little peppermints in there. We have a little journal for notes. We have a little coloring book just for stress, anxiety, for stress. We give everybody gets one of these books. This is an amazing book. I have started reading it later on. But it's hard. You come with map colors. They get one of these. We have tissues. We have pens. And we leave them with, hopefully we leave them with hope. And then we follow up with them. We do follow-up calls the first week, first month, 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and on the anniversary. Since then, we also do delayed responses. Out of all of the ones that we've had here in Cooke County, we've had 9 that we have either done on scene or delayed responses to. All the ones that actually happened here in Cooke County were all men. One was 16, one was just about to turn 40, and the rest were all above 40. They were 40 to 84. It's a population that many times, we forget, but men are so much more likely to die by suicide. The delayed responses are people that have lost a loved one in another county. And the only one that we had in that was a college student. She was new. Actually, I don't think she had really actually even started. She just graduated high school. It was a girl that, brilliant, beautiful, had a scholarship, Texas Tech, and parents, no clues, and died by hanging. So we do the on-scene, the delayed. Our police officers are the one. We get crime scene etiquette. Hopefully our benefits is we reduce additional suicides. We absorb the emotionality at the scene because the officers are having to work the scenes. So we're a big plus. They're very happy to have us. Our sheriff's department, and they have all been so supportive. I trained all of our Oak Ridge, Valley View, Munster, Lindsay, Gainesville PD on, and they so far they have been very supportive. I even got called on one that was an incomplete that I was able to be there for. Allow all law officers to do what they've got to do. Provide trained mental health providers to help provide support. We reduce complaints and we provide that resource. We do need support, and this is why we all need to get on board because that shouldn't have happened. I think if she used to tell me, I'm practicing that Alive. She even drew me my logo for the Alive. She was so excited about it. And she says, I practice it every day. But let me tell you something. Once you're that age, do you know your belief system is 40 times greater than your words that you speak? Your words have power. But if you've already got instilled a core belief system, then I'm not good. I mean, I'm not saying you can't change it, but to change your core belief system can be hard. It can take years. It can take a lot of counseling to change those wrong core belief systems. That's why we've got to get them at 4. Or I didn't realize 4 at that time. That's pre-K. We need to get them at pre-K so they don't get those wrong. They have the tools to help protect them from these wrong belief systems. But that's it. And I went over 15 minutes. Sorry, ladies. Thank y'all.